Hi, we're back with the Jacksonville History Show and Dr. Wayne Wood. I'm Emily Rutherford-Liska, Executive Director of the Jacksonville Historical Society. And we were just talking about this wonderful book, The Gift of Public Service, in the words of Fred Schultz, the late Fred Schultz. And Dr. Wood spearheaded this publication, and I'm sure many people were fascinated by your words about this book and your recap of the book. And if people would like to come to the book unveiling, because this book has not been unveiled yet, it's being seen here for the first time. The book unveiling is Tuesday, January 24th. You and John Young will be presenting a program at the Jacksonville Historical Society, and people can find out more on jackshistory.com, and we'd love to have you at the show, the book signing, the unveiling. It will be a wonderful program.
Well, we hope people will come for that. The book is a wonderful book, and the program will tell more about Fred Schultz. And part of the reason I've worked so hard on these books is as a fundraiser for the Jacksonville Historical Society. I don't get paid for any of the books I've worked on. I do it out of the love of creating history, but also it's a wonderful way for the Jacksonville Historical Society to have a fundraiser.
And you have sustained us, Dr. Wood, and I thank you very much. We're going to look at some of these, I won't call them the dirty dozen. These are the fabulous dozen books, at least a dozen books that you have written or collaborated on about wonderful Jacksonville. And we're going to start.
Well, I got my start. I was the founder of the Riverside Avondale Preservation Organization, and we decided we needed a book to tell about Riverside. So back in 1976, my first work that could be called a book was the bicycling walking tour of Riverside and Avondale, which was a nice catalog of Riverside and Avondale's historic and architectural gems.
How difficult is this to find anymore, that book?
It is on eBay for about $50. It's been out of print for a long, long time.
You should be proud.
As is this book. This was called Riverside Remembered. It was written, the text was written by Dr. George Hallam of JU, and I put the book together and did the research and made a wonderful story of the old mansions that used to exist on Riverside that are now mostly gone, sadly.
Oh, so another difficult book to nab.
The next book was The Living Heritage of Riverside and Avondale, which was done as a companion piece for an exhibit in the Cummer Museum of Art and Gardens on the history of the old families that lived in Riverside and Avondale. And following that was a book that I guess I'm most known for. This is Jacksonville's Architectural Heritage. And although I've gotten a lot of credit for this book, I worked on it for a long time, but it was a true collaboration with hundreds and hundreds of people in the community participating in the putting together and the research of that book. And I will tell you this as an aside, Emily, that I kept telling people it will be out for Christmas. I just didn't tell them which year. It took 12 years. Now this one we had a big deadline for because the Great Fire of 1901 had its centennial coming up in 2001, and so we realized about a year earlier that we had to do a book on the Great Fire. I collaborated on this with the late Bill Foley, who was a wonderful writer for the Times-Union. Now, I've showed this book because it's a book most of your audience will not have seen. It's called How Long is Memory? And this is a little memoir I did taking a manuscript from my wife's grandmother and illustrating it. And you might just flip through the book to give them a picture of it. This was a book that is done online through instant publishing that is now a commonplace thing using some of the old family photographs and this manuscript. And I did this book in 10 days using a program called blurb.com, which your viewers, if they have an old family memoir or something they want to preserve for future generations, we wound up printing 25 copies of that, but at least that family history is now saved and preserved. The biggest book I've ever done, is 7 pounds worth, is the Jacksonville Family Album. We went through the Historical Society's archives and realized we had pictures that made up a wonderful picture book. And while we're at it, why not go throughout the world and glean all of the archival quality photographs of Jacksonville and put in one big book. The history of Henry John Clutho's work was captured also by Bob Brower, the architect, and this book was originally published by the University Press of Florida, but it went out of print, and the original book was very small and the pictures weren't big, so I redid it as a lavish coffee table book with the great photos. Another book your viewers may not know about is an autobiography by the wonderful, eccentric environmentalist Bob Brower, Dr. Ragland. Bob Ragland started the Sierra Club here in Jacksonville, and his life's mission is to preserve our environment, to save the world, and he's still alive and kicking at 93.
Well, I can prove the point if they take a long shot, because I had to keep stacking these in my lap to keep up with your monologue there, which was fabulous. I think this is just right at a dozen, but there are others, and we appreciate all you've done to promote history. Now, we've talked about these collaborations. Tell me.
Don't hurt yourself.
Listen, I have hurt myself picking up these boxes of books in the past. Your collaborations have just been monumental, but I want to talk about what you're thinking. You're always thinking of something in the future. So what do you have in the works right now?
Well, one of my bright and lovely patients, Diane Daywood, was working on a master's thesis and asked, what should I write on? And I said, you should write on Charles Adrian Pillars, the great sculptor from Jacksonville who did the Memorial Park statue, but also was world-renowned as a sculptor and never made it into the history of modern American sculpture. And so she did her master's thesis on this. She's got her doctorate degree and wrote a wonderful master's thesis that we decided we should collaborate on as a book on this great master sculptor who spent his career in St. Augustine and in Jacksonville. He did work for this 1893 Chicago World's Fair. He worked with the greatest sculptors of the time, and we've been able to go back and get his notebooks, his scrapbooks, his ledgers, photographs of his work that have not been seen, and we're hoping that we'll be able to gather enough of his actual sculptures that when this book comes out we can do an exhibit in the Cummer Museum or some such facility as that. So that's my next book where I'm working on presently.
Very exciting. Let me ask you this, because you touched on this publish on demand book, and there are a lot of people listening who have family diaries, journals, memoirs, and they probably like to try this. And you mentioned one site, blurb.com. What advice can you give people who want to self-publish, maybe just for family use?
Well, the first thing is just do it. You don't have to have any great skills to do it. It helps if you have a scanner and can carefully scan your old family photographs. If you have any skills at photo editing so that you can crop them and make, enhance the contrast. But basically you download this program and you just take your pictures and you drag it into the window where it has a picture for a book, for a photograph. You drag your text into it and then you upload it and your book comes out and you can get one copy. The one I showed you there costs about $18, or you can get 25 copies or 1,000 copies. And this way you can pass on the family history to generation after generation. Photos fade, they get lost, they get torn, they get destroyed. But a book like this can live on for many generations to come. So I think it's a valuable way of a modern way of preserving history and your family's story.
And I have to tell you, when you asked me to thumb through the little book that you published in this way, just for your family, I didn't do it justice, because as I was looking through earlier, this is really a magnificent treasure. I cannot imagine how overwhelmed the family must have felt when you presented this. I don't know if it was a surprise or not, but
well, it was, and it was a labor of love, and actually nobody knew I was working on it. That's a nice thing about it, is anybody can do it.
Yeah.
Publishing a book is a great feeling when you come up and have a book signing, but you don't have to think of yourself as an author in order to put down in a way to preserve your family's history in a book. And a book is, we talk about architecture being rocks and mortar and stone and steel, and it's very fragile. I mean, buildings get torn down, but books can live forever.
What do you think about the e-book craze? Do you think that in any way compromises?
No, I mean, many of the books I've done have been very illustration heavy, and you don't quite get the richness of that in an e-book. But the fact is, the history is being recorded and being preserved and passed on digitally that will probably outlive all the printed books. So who can have an argument with that?
Well, I don't at all. Now we have about 3 minutes left, and I really want to revisit these treasures, these two treasures that you have produced back to back for the Jacksonville Historical Society, for the community, and in collaboration. First, of course, the gift of public service. In the words of Frederick Schultz, his story, and
this man needs to be remembered and recognized. He was one of the true central people to making Jacksonville the modern city that it is, and he did it on so many levels: political, cultural, philanthropy-wise, leadership-wise, civil rights. He cut across the whole spectrum, and is one of our city's towering figures that needs to be commemorated, and people need to read this book and find out just all the things he did for us so we can enjoy our bold new city of the South.
And once again, the unveiling with Dr. Wood and John Young is Tuesday, January 24th at the Jacksonville Historical Society, 6:30 book signing, 7 p.m. program, and I promise it's with Dr. Wood. It will be wonderful, I promise.
Very kind.
And of course, I have to mention, I've got so many books stacked over there. It's just like being at home or at the office, no difference at all. The Broward family, from France to Florida, magnificent publication. This has been flying out the door. Of course, the Schultz book hasn't even presented to the public yet. People are seeing it for the first time.
Well, I'm very proud of the Broward book, not only because Bob is such a wonderful character, Bob Broward, but he's written such a wonderful book, and I'm happy to help present this because it includes a lot of history that's never been talked about much. The story in the early part when Florida was a Spanish possession up through the time of the Civil War and after the Civil War, when we see all these nice little pictures of Victorian Jacksonville. But there was a lot of horrible stuff going on too, and this tells the story of what went on behind those lovely photos of the tourists, which, by the way, is another book I have coming up on Victorian Jacksonville. I have some beautiful pictures of Jacksonville, the likes of which you've never seen before. I have another book coming up on the architecture of Taylor Hardwick, a great mid-century modern architect, and a lot more surprises. Hopefully your viewers will be tuned into those.
Always a surprise. Thank you for adding to the body of knowledge of Florida history. I'm Emily Liska. I've been here with the one and only Wayne Wood, and for now, we're history. Thanks, Wayne.
Thanks, Emily.